चिन्मुखारो सर्व पाव प्रणाशनो मंगलाणं च सव्वेसिं परमं हवै मंगलम् ॐ नमो हरिहन्ताणम् Dear young friends, we welcome you in this Shivir on behalf of the organizing committee of the center and congratulate you to undertake talks with us which are likely to take your life on an upward scale. Before talking about the subject of Jainism and the world problems, I would like you to tell a few things to you for your personal development. Why have you come here? Ask yourself. Just because Mummy and Papa have said, just because it is a weekend, just because it is a change, that's not enough. That's okay, but that's not enough. We have come here to make our life happy, healthy and hearty. We want to learn good things, put them in our day-to-day routine and make our life happy, healthy and hearty, altogether meaning great. Happy means good circumstances which allow us to do our work comfortably. Healthy means our body cooperates with us and we can work according to our wish. And hearty means we always remain in a joyous mood, in a pleasing mood, and also look upon everyone as our friend. Hearty, H-E-A-R-T-Y. We feel for others. We are considerate to others. We do what is the good for all around us, especially those who are in distress, who are in agony, who are in pain, or who are unhappy from any external cause. All of you will like to be happy, healthy and hearty, but you have to pay price for it. Nobody can be great or nobody can be happy, healthy and hearty unless he puts appropriate efforts to attain that. That's why only few people in the world are like that. Others are just dragging their life. What do you call it in Gujarati? સાહેબ ઢસરડો કરીએ છીએ. સાહેબ ઢસરડો કરીએ છીએ. So what are the criteria to make our life great? First of all is to fix the goal of your life according to your circumstances, according to your ability, according to your inclinations, and in consonance with in consultation with the advices from your parents, from your teachers, from your friends and well-wishers, you fix what do you want to be, what is the goal of your life. Ordinarily it may be any doctor or engineer or chartered accountant or professor or principal or scientist or anything like that in the external life. But one thing should be constant. Whatever may be your line, you should be virtuous. Man is recognized not by only his external achievements, but by his inner attitude towards everyone. So you have to determine the goal of your life. What do you want to be? And that you may take little time for that, doesn't matter. But once you determine that you want to be so and so, then the determination should be formed. The second thing, can't go and change it. For a few months you study for this, then say, no, I don't like this life. Then you change for the other, and then you change for the third, and then you go nowhere. A rolling stone gathers no moss. Firm determination is more so for spiritual life, but it is useful and also necessary for all types of achievements in life. Third thing, hard work. Hard work. What does it mean? For those who are above 15, you must put up the work for about 14 hours a day. कम खाना, कम सोना, and only bare minimum of the extracurricular activities for refreshment. Work is worship. Work is worship for him. He is with his work when all his friends and companions are they are doing that, and he is at work. Hard work. There is no replacement for it. Hard but coordinated, a well thought, well planned work. Fourth thing, no matter what field of life you choose, your attitude towards everyone should be humane and respectful. Our attitude towards everyone, starting from parents, brothers, sisters, teachers, friends, other associates. Our attitude should be नमे ते प्रभु ने गमे. नमे ते प्रभु ने पण गमे. कहेवत humility and humane attitude, caring for others, respecting others is a great addition for success in life, in whatever field it may be. Now life is not that easy. Life is a long travel. studded with lots of difficulties, lots of oddities. In those circumstances, we have to keep patience and perseverance. Patience and perseverance, meaning thereby, try and try again, boys, you will succeed at last. Try and try again, boys, you will succeed at last. Failure doesn't matter. I will improve and try again. So patience and perseverance are also basic to a successful life. Last thing is, you might think, sir, you are old, so you don't know our feelings, you don't have our attitude towards life. You pass through all the things from scratch. 7 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, 20 years, 22, 25 and so forth. All work and no play make Jack a dull boy. So now and then we must inspire ourselves, find out appropriate means for relaxation. That may be in the form of a sports. It depends on whether it is tennis for you, whether it is swimming for you, whether it is badminton for you, or it all depends on what type of sports you are interested in. Not only sports, it may be drama, it may be art, it may be music, or it may be anything else. Another thing is regularly meeting noble people, great people. Try to see your professor, try to see your principal, try to see any man who has achieved greatness in his sphere of life, or for that purpose, anyone who is virtuous. We should frequently meet them and imbibe the inspiration to be great. And when such things are not possible, then reading the work of the good great man, reading the books written by the great man, because they have their autobiography is full of inspiration and of practical ways, practical difficulties which they encountered, how they overcame their difficulties. They have written down everything. They have not written down only the success part of their life. They have also written down the failure parts of his life also. That is why they are great. Who is great? Great is he whose life is an open book. Great is he whose life is an open book. પોતાના દોષોને કબૂલ કરવા અને તે સુધારવા. To accept one's faults and to rectify them through repentance. So these are some of the few points which, if you keep in your mind and act upon them, success is sure. That much as an introduction for development of personality, personal life. Now world problems and Jainism. Well, Mahendra Rai and Girish Rai and all of the senior people have been telling you and teaching you a lot about Jainism. The three main principles of Bhagavan Mahavira is Adhikar, Ahimsa, Anekanta and Aparigraha. Ahimsa means not that we don't kill anybody. That is implied. But we help others to live a happy life. We have to have a constructive view of non-violence. Live happily and peacefully and help others to live in the same way. Then we will have no force. Everyone is our friend. Everyone is our friend. So there may be an odd person who believes us to be foe, but we don't believe him to be our foe. In practice, it will expect that we have to be vegetarians. We have to be vegetarians. We have to be gentle. Violence through the mind is to be avoided. No bad thoughts for anybody. Violence through speech. धीरे से बोलो, प्रेम से बोलो, आदर देकर बोलो, जरूरत होने पर बोलो. Can repeat? Speak slowly. Repeat. Speak slowly. Speak with affection. Speak with affection. Respect others and speak. Respect others and speak. And speak as and when it is needed. Speak as and when, and speak as and when it is needed. That is vocal non-violence. Vocal non-violence. And then bodily non-violence. Keeping a loving and affectionate attitude towards all. Not only our family members and friends, but also towards the animals, the insects, and all the living creatures of the world. That is in general non-violence. Anekan is non-dogmatism. Non-dogmatism. Be broad-minded and accept and respect the views of others also. A broad vision in life so as to respect the views of others also in our life. Then it has many offshoots from that. And aparigraha is little bit difficult, but greatness cannot come without that. Plain living, high thinking, relatively inexpensive life, and collection of various virtues. Collection of various virtues in our life. These are some of the main principles of Bhagavan Mahavir which we apply in our life. Our life will be happy and noble. Of course, the problems of the present world are too many. You may now ask as to what are the problems from your point of view and what are the possible solutions. As much as are solvable can be solved. There are always going to be some problems which are unsolvable. So the great men say, what cannot be cured must be endured with equanimity. What cannot be cured must be endured with equanimity. So then now Mahendra Bhai will take over and tell us regarding any queries from your side.
Pujya Sri Atmanand Ji gave you a brief overview of personal development and world problem. He did not want to take a lot of time and impose upon you his views or ideas which you probably could read from the book also. He just wanted to give you some basics and then invite you, your ideas, questions, problems, suggestions or any other concepts. By the way, just if I may take a couple of your more minutes, Pujya Atmanand Ji, let me just introduce you quickly. He was born in 1931 in India. He studied medicine and did his equivalent to MD in India. He went to UK for further study, stayed there for 5 years, came back, got married, started his own hospital. His wife was a doctor also. And from early childhood he was very inclined to some religious ideas. He was not born in a Jain family, but probably is much more Jain than any one of us in this audience, as you could probably see from his learnedness and as his heart is set on God, religion and his own soul. He studied many concepts and religious ideas of India, what we call darshan, means religious schools of thought. He tried to unify them. He started some kind of a study circle. He started publishing a magazine, monthly magazine. In 1975 he started all this. In 1981 he moved out that place between just not too far from Ahmedabad, about a dozen or so miles from Ahmedabad, and that is where there is a facility for meditation. You can go do some religious and spiritual studies. There are free facilities for staying and food and whatnot if you are really interested, not for vacation or just some kind of a summer second home. For your information, Dr. Swaminji, he was not very much willing to take this foreign visit because of his health, but everybody is really requested that please do come and inspire us. And so he agreed. He was in London for a week. He was in New York area about 3 weeks or so. He was a little less than a week in Phoenix and a little more than 2 weeks in Los Angeles. We are very fortunate to have him here. But we at the same time, we are very unfortunate that his health is not as good as it should have been. But we will make the best of it. Along with him, we have, the right side, our president of our Jain Center, Sri Kantibai Shah, or every one of you know. Next to him is Jayant Bhai Shah, who is the president. Jayant Bhai Shah is the president of that religious study or ashram near Ahmedabad, known as the Koba Ashram. Koba is a small township. There are other people who have come with him so that they can really purify their soul and make some advancement spiritually. I won't bother you with their introduction as it's not much relevant to you, but to adults we'll introduce you tomorrow. Jain Bhai rather will introduce. With this short one, let me invite some questions. You will try to answer, time and health permitting. Otherwise, our respected Girish Bhai, our respected Praveen Bhai or somebody else might try also. Do we have some paper that they can write on, or you can stand up and say so? Everything is informal. I mean, there's nothing to any formality or nothing to be shy about. So feel free to say what you feel like, ask like. This is a special forum that our President Kantibai and organizer Girish Bhain, Praveen Bhain, everybody set it up for you. The children may have some question, something they might want to compare with science and religion and everyday life and whatnot, so feel free to ask questions. As Pujya Atmanandi said, Jainism may not be able to solve all the problems, but it can certainly help and it can go a long way.
If at all you guys feel more comfortable in using the paper, I'll be more than glad to come over and read the paper. I mean, if you guys want to stand up, if you guys would like to stand up and pose your question, obviously, you're more than welcome, but if you wish to use the paper, we have it here. If कोई ना mic जो तो I'll even bring the mic over there. कोई ना paper जो है sir? Okay. Anybody for paper here? I see you have a question.
Dr. Sonaji, I want to know why is there 24 Bhagwans? Why do you only respect them, not other people that are liberated? Okay. There's 24 Tirthankars, Bhagwan, Mahavir Swami, Rishabdev. Why do you only always respect them and never respect other people else? You always mention other people.
Do you respect others? True Jain religion is not the worshipper of an individual. It is the worshipper of the virtues. Any person who has got virtues is respectable. Jain Dharma accepts that Rama Bhagavan had become Siddha. Sita Mata has gone to 12th heaven. Other great men also have achieved great success. All the saints, all the true saints, we respect. We are not of that sectarian attitude. I mentioned perhaps that our vision should be broad. Our vision should include all the great men in the world. Mahavira is just our medium to go to all the great men. So, we pray also. जिसने राग द्वेष कामादिक जीते सब जग जान लिया, सब जीवों को मोक्ष मार्ग का निस्पृह हो उपदेश दिया। बुद्ध वीर जिन हरिहर ब्रह्मा या उसको स्वाधीन कहो, भक्ति भाव से प्रेरित हो, यह चित्त उसी में लीन रहो। भक्ति भाव से प्रेरित हो, यह चित्त उसी में लीन रहो। The charity and prayer of Muhammad Sahib, or the great compassion and love of Sri Jesus Christ, are also to be respected in their appropriate context. So we are the worshipper of virtues and we are not the worshipper of any particular person. So that should be our attitude.
I think Pujya Atmananji pretty much covered your question. You also had a little bit concern about why we are worshipping only Mahavir and not an ordinary. Really? Why are we worshipping Mahavir? Actually, your idea is excellent. It's way ahead of your age and time. All the great men have said that ultimately we should worship our own soul, which is very pure and as good and as good like a gold, like they say, as good as Lord Mahavir. Ultimately, we should worship our own soul, but to be able to do so, we need some support, some goal, some objective, something to look forward to. Like children look at their parents as a model until certain age, or the teacher. Similarly, we look at Lord Mahavir, who showed us the path, having attained the perfect knowledge. So we thank him, we get inspiration from him, we get strength and courage, and we follow that path. Ultimately, even Lord Mahavir said, don't look at me all the way, only up to a certain way, then go on your own and be like me. He doesn't say come to me and stay at my feet all the time. No, that is our, like Pujya Atmananji said, we worship the virtue, not the individual. Okay. Oh.
There is a lot of incarnation between Jainism, Buddhism and Hinduism. But what is the key destination that separates Jainism from the other two?
There are three main principles which are unique to Jainism. First is Karma Siddhant. Whatever we do through mind, speech or body results in influx of the karmas which get bound to our soul, and in due course they fructify and give us the fruit thereof, whether it is misery or happiness. So regarding Karma Siddhant, nobody has said like this as Mahavir has said. They understand little Gujarati. Atma Siddhi Karmayanant Prakar Na Te Ma Mukhe Art Te Ma Mukhe Mohaniya Hanayate Kahu Part. Why somebody is rich, why somebody is poor, why somebody is handsome, why somebody is not handsome, why somebody is a girl, why somebody is a boy, why somebody is foolish, why somebody is very wise and clever, always scores first rank in his life. All these disparities, apparent disparities in life are explained on the basis of the Karma Siddhanta, which has not been depicted so scientifically and in such a subtle manner as Mahavir has done it. The other two are also there, non-violence and Anekantavad. Everyone has accepted non-violence, but non-violence has been worked out in a very subtle and detailed way, and also Anekant, Syadvad, the multiple viewpoint theory. This is the book, 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 and this is also the book. Every substance has multiple facets, and a knowledge of all the facets taken together gives us the true picture or the entire knowledge of the particular object. That way it is known as Syadvad. So these are the three main principles which are special to Jainism, though the last two are also accepted to a considerable extent by Hinduism and Buddhism. In reality we can say that all the three are Arya dharmas. All the three are Arya dharmas, the Hinduism, the Buddhism and the Jainism. All the three have been propagated by persons who have been born and brought up in India. Buddha was also Indian. Mahavira or Rishabhadeva, of course they are not established, but the pioneers of Jainism were also born in India, and the great Rishi Muni like Yagnavalkya or Krishna Bhagavan or others were also born in India, so Rama or Shankara and so forth. So all the three are the branches of Aryan religions. They have grown together, they are growing together, and they will always remain here together. So these are some of the main things in which Jainism has special thing to say.
As Pujya Atmanandaji said, in India, Hinduism is the mainstream. That, as he said, one of the differences is the creation. Hinduism believes somebody created the world. There is a supreme ruler like Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh and all those. Jainism does not believe in a creator. That's one of the difference. Jainism and Buddhism come quite close, although there is quite a bit difference. Buddhism says the soul dies, it gets born and dies and all that kind of some differences. Jainism says soul is eternal, it just takes different form. When it becomes pure, it becomes God like Mahavir Swami or Rishabhdev. But basically, like Pujya Atmanandaji said, those religions are fundamental to our Indian culture and they are quite similar in many ways, especially in everyday living. But the differences are only for the people who are learned and who want to get to the deep of the religion. How did the whole thing started kind of thing. So that is where the differences lie. Especially karma theory, as Dr. Sonaji said, that in karma theory also there is some difference. In Jainism, like non-violence is probably expounded by all religions of the world. There is not a single religion in the world who says let's go violent or violence is the rule or religion. No. But Jainism is the only religion in the world who goes to the so deep, to the so much microscopic extent. Like in Pratikraman we say 18,24,120 which means 1.8 million kinds of ways we could hurt other living beings. And we ask for the forgiveness. It goes to that deep. Anyway, without taking much time to that one, it says here, many say that science is behind because they say there is beginning and an end, while we in Jainism say there is no beginning and no end, which is true. Why? Obviously we are right. We are true, right? If we hadn't been, we wouldn't be all gathering together under Lord Mahavir's picture or our temple or Pujya Atmanandaji. But basically, science is the one that accepts something only when it is proven. If you cannot prove it, science says throw out. That's one characteristic of science. Second characteristic of science is you have to have a theory, an experiment, a proof, and then third thing in science is what is true today, tomorrow may not be true. 1,000 years ago they said the earth was flat, now it says it's round. 1,000 years ago they said there was no life in vegetation, now they say it does. See, it keeps on changing. As science discovers new truth, new reality, new laws of physics, it will just establish new theories. But the theory today, firmly established, will be thrown out in the sewer tomorrow, if it is proven wrong. While not so in religion. In religion, whatever Lord Rishabhdev said is still true at time of Lord Shantinath or Mallinath or Neminath or Parshanath Bhagan or Mahavir Swami. Mahavir Swami did not start Jainism. Mahavir Swami did not say anything new. He simply, according to the time and place, he just explained to the people so people could follow it for the betterment of their own soul, not for Mahavir Swami, not for you, not for me, not for you, or not for him. We all do the religion only for our own soul. So, just take a couple of quick examples. In our religion said, in one drop of water there are millions of living souls. Well, science didn't believe it. Just barely 100 or less years ago, they said, yes, there is some truth in it. Now they have come to the point like 16,000 some number. And they are making progress. It may be slow progress. Slowly science is catching up with us, religion. But it is a way behind. Okay, second example is wireless transmission. In our religion, in all the heavenly, the communication is many times through mental communication, through other communication. When Tirthankar is born, in the first heaven, they kind of ring the bell, which can be heard billions of miles away. How? How can you have a short way that you can talk on a cellular here, which somebody in London, Paris or Bombay can hear? Same thing, science is slowly catching up. Life in vegetable or this plants, science didn't believe it. Our religion said at least, thousands of years ago in our scriptures. Well, now science believes there is a life in plants and vegetation. Final example is, look at in our scriptures. Science did not have anything like, there was nobody even imagined about aeroplane or flying in air, right? Even with some means, in our scriptures, there's a descriptions of all kinds of aeroplanes and things. So these are only a few quick examples that religion is always great. And the only reason is not because things don't happen what Tirthankar or God say, but they say what is happening. In other words, in the perfect knowledge, they can see the thing and they can say the thing. That is what they said in our scripture. That is what we study. That is what we have faith in. That is what we believe. But of course, we live in everyday world. So while going to school, we try to combine the two. Any other question? Puji Atmananji, you just mentioned that Jainism as Mahavir's teaching only have proven the karmic theory on non-scientific basis. Would you kindly elaborate on it further? Also, I heard that you have experienced Atma Gyan. Would you explain and share your experience and feelings with us, please? The second part, I would like to request you also, myself. Would you like to say the first, second, or any other? He said, why don't you say a few words on the first one, the karmic theory. Karmic theory, again, as I said, in religion is not a science. You just cannot prove what science does. You take the thing, have a hypothesis or a theory, take it to the laboratory, have some experiment, and based on results you try to correct or modify and have the theory and bang, done. Not quite so in religion. The reason is simple. Science is groping in the dark, slowly making progress, solid, secure progress. But religion does not grope in the dark. It looks at the whole picture, because omniscient Lord, in the perfect knowledge with a pure soul, they did and they can see the truth, whole truth and nothing but the truth. They can see everything. They can see past, present and future. They can see here, there and everywhere. They can see living and non-living. They can see everything in the three worlds. The world above us, the world we live in, and the world below us. Also known as heaven, hell and our own world. So that is why religion is that way different. Now coming to the karmic theory, sometimes we can see the things because, you see, our knowledge is a very minute compared to the perfect and complete knowledge of our Lord or Mahavir Swami or anybody at that category, So only we can conjecture based on our limited knowledge and limited capacity. And let's take an example on karmic theory. How can science explain that some people are born with a perfect body and good look and all, and some people are not? Some people are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and some people have a hard time trying to collect the food for the next day. Some people in the Middle East, billionaires, can't even sign their own name, and some people here with a couple of PhDs don't know how to buy a sofa or what to do next month, or how to pay the rent for next month. How can you explain this disparity? Why some people die at the age of 5 years or in the womb of the mother, And so why some people live 110 years? Why some people get disease and some people don't? Why some people get cured for the same disease and same medicine and some don't? So these disparities are explained by the theory of karma, that whatever we do is registered in a way, and like Puja Atmanandi explained today and yesterday, karma is like a supercomputer and there is no virus in it. This computer works forever. It does not degrade with time, it works perfect forever, and it takes care of everything. Whatever you think, whatever you do, and it is registered there and you get the results accordingly. And all the disparity you see in the world can be very comfortably explained by the theory of karma. And that is why Jainism is great in the sense, like Pujya Sri explained, that Jainism has one of the finest and best karma theory, that it can explain most of the things what we see and live through, if not all of it. While other religions, and especially some Indian religions, cannot explain everything. And he probably will try to throw some light on his self-realization.
The question of self-realization is also known as God realization. There are so many words for it. Atma Darshan, Paramatma Darshan, Samyak Darshan, Atma Anubhav, Paramatma Sakshatkar, Atma Sakshatkar, and so forth. Of course, I don't know how much you'll be able to appreciate what I will say in a few minutes. Why we want to attain to self-realization? We want to attain to self-realization because in the whole universe it is only the self which can make us happy. Without our true self, nobody can make us truly happy. The virtue of happiness, the virtue of bliss is inherited in our own true self. And if we realize it, if we experience it, if we conceive it first intellectually and then we have to undertake the process of self-purification and non-possession. Two things, mainly. It's a bit subtle for young people to conceive it, but when you ask the question, I will answer it. Non-possession. I am not the owner of anything in the world. In belief, my motor car is not mine, my TV is not mine, even my parents are not mine, my clothes are not mine, my TV is not mine, my body is not mine, my speech is not really mine. And last, the various types of thoughts which come to my mind, though they come because of my own effort, they are not my true self. My true self is pure knower. Pure knower. I know my thoughts spontaneously. I know my thoughts spontaneously. The spontaneous knower. The real knower is myself. That attitude has to be developed in one's life to become निर्मोही. निर्मोही मोह जितना है, as much as there is moh, you are away from moksha. And as you proceed near moksha, moha subdues, moha thins out, eventually moha disappears. Second thing, I will not become angry because I am of the nature of forgiveness. I will not be proud and arrogant because humility is my nature. I will not deceive anyone because straightforwardness is my true self. I will not have undue desires because contentment is my true self, and so forth. This is to be practiced in all walks of life, day in and day out. Thereby, the moh which produces bad thoughts in our life subdues. Gradually our thoughts purify, our thoughts purify, then they travel inwards. Because we have accepted these thoughts are not my true self, so the thoughts subside, thoughts subside, thoughts subside, thoughts subside, thoughts subside. Then comes a moment of conventional thoughtlessness. Conventional thoughtlessness and full knowledge and supersensuous beliefs, and this is self-realization. After that, as a result of after effect, the man's total inner personality is changed. Suppose your sister is married. After her marriage, she comes to your house, but if you say that no, now permanently stay here, you don't want to go there, then she will not agree because she has known from her experience that my true home is my husband's house. Like that, a person who has realized his soul looks upon this world as a dream. This all is a drama. It is not true from absolute point of view. That state is continuously kept at conscious level or at the faith level in a person who has realized himself. Of course, then there are lots of virtues in him. He's benevolent, peaceful, respects others, respects virtues, he doesn't undertake sinful activities as far as possible, and then there are many other things associated with it. And self-realization is also not one thing. You have to go above that and above that and above that till you attain the state of omniscience. But I think these are a few points. If you want to cross question or have a particular thing to ask, you can ask for it.
There is one simple question that any one of the Pathshala teacher could answer, or any one of the 75 adult class attendees can answer. I asked a couple of them that why don't you answer? They said, no, you go. I said, why? They said, you got a big mouth. You can probably answer it and talk too much. And second reason, they said, if the kids don't like it, if they throw stones and sticks, you can take it. So anyway, they just pushed me forward. It says, can you please explain that how alcohol is not vegetarian? And considering all the time and couple other questions, we'll simply say that alcohol is made by brewing, fermentation. and which involves millions of bacteria. So this is the simple reason. Another reason is this the same reason that why in Jainism it is forbidden to gambling is forbidden. Why? Because it distorts our mind and thinking and our perception. Alcohol does the same thing. So these are a couple of quick reasons, but main reason is millions of bacteria during fermentation. Okay, I think we'll have a couple more questions. It's already 3:35. I don't know what's the program or Kantibhai?
Yeah, we would going to have a tea break and then we have continue more question and answer session after the tea break. So maybe we can have either one question, we continue the session, have a tea break, and during the tea break we have arranged tea and we have got some fruits for the children. So you can enjoy fruits and tea for children and the tea for the adults.
Yes, question here. Oh, you want to ask question here? You mean other than written question? Come here.
Same question.
How about yogurt is permitted? Even in permission, I mean, you make the same way with fermentation or yoga or whatever.
As I understand, with my limited understanding, only Dhirubhai Pandit or some Pandit can probably explain scriptural basis. As I understand with my alpamati or limited knowledge, that the fermentation or that process in yogurt in the beginning is not as detrimental or involving bacteria as in alcohol. That's why yogurt up to a certain time is okay. After a certain time it is forbidden unless you warm it up, like boiling water kind of thing. You don't boil the yogurt, but I mean warm it up. That is my understanding, but we'll ask Dhirubhai unless. આ થોડુંક શાસ્ત્રીય થોડું છે સૂત્ર સિદ્ધાંતનો. ઓનલી એડવાન્સ સ્ટેજ એટલે સાહેબજીનું કહેવાનું એમ છે કે અમુક સ્ટેજ સુધી વાંધો નથી, આપણે ધીરુભાઈને પૂછીને એને વધારે ખુલાસો મેળવી. મારી આવી સમજણ છે અલ્પમતી પ્રમાણે કે દહીંની અંદર એની જે પ્રોસેસ છે શરૂઆતના સમયની અંદર એની અંદર એટલી બધી જીવ હિંસા કે એવું નથી, અમુક સમય પછી છે અને એટલા જ માટે અમુક સમય પછી દહીં કાં તો વાપરવાનું ને તો ગરમ કરવાનું એને. You want to say your own question other than the written one? You will get two questions. Huh? Is that? Well, let me see if anybody else, so you can spread. Okay, but let's see a written question. Okay. Dr. Soneji, at the YJ convention, we discussed business. We were given the task of putting on a business conference. There were many problems, one of which was what a Jain would serve at this conference. One could serve only vegetarian food applying the concept of ahimsa, or one could serve both vegetarian and non-vegetarian applying anekantvad, which is right and proper according to Jainism. What she is saying is anekantvad means multiplicity of viewpoint. You can have violence in one hand and non-violence in other. That is not anekantvad, but maybe you can. I don't think this question was much of does not arise really. I mean, no. It doesn't matter who asked. So no reflection on you, her or anybody. It's a very good question. That question can be raised in anybody's mind. We adults don't ask because we are shy, afraid, or somebody might think, you don't know even such simple things. And you kids are so innocent that you do ask questions, so we admire you. But anyway, in Jainism, there is no but and if as far as the violence is concerned. So there is no question. Anekantvad does not mean that you do both. You lie and you tell the truth. You steal and don't steal. No, that is not anekantvad. Anekantvad means you just look at the truth from both sides or every side or many sides, multiplicity of viewpoint, you listen to the other person, you agree to disagree. See, agree to disagree. Even after a multiplicity of viewpoint, you still may disagree with the person, but politely, lovingly and respectfully. Okay, Puneet has a question.
In this young age, we come across many obstacles such as career, friends, relatives, and also certain inner obstacles of mind which prevent us from going into religion in a deeper way. How do we solve this particular problem? Is there any way we could strike a balance between the two? Also, do young people have any other advantages of practicing religion as compared to elders?
Since he asked a question, although we are not going to introduce the visitors here, I must introduce. His name is Punit. He is a nephew of our teacher or respected Praveen uncle, and he is visiting with Dr. Swaminji, giving up his family. So now you have overcome one obstacle, because you came with him, leaving behind your current activity, study and family, and we admire you for that one. Now his question is in two parts. One is says, we face many obstacles, friends, family and whatnot, and how do we overcome? I think in our scripture says there are four kinds of obstacles. Obstacles of the people, obstacles of our relatives, obstacles of our body, and obstacles of our thinking. And they all go one after another in that order. In other words, if you do some religious activity, somebody said, why you go there, it won't look good, what people will think or say. And if you are sure, proud and kind of confident, you go do. You have already overcome one. Similarly, your family or relatives might say that we are this kind of Jain, you don't go to this Hindu, or we are Hindu, don't go to Jain. In your mind, if you follow certain religion or certain concept or things, you go there. Make sure you do with understanding and faith. Okay, and commitment. Third is your body. Often the people say, yeah, there is Dr. Swaminji lecture at 2 o'clock to 3:30. It's very nice. I could have gone, but I got a little headache and I didn't get sleep last night because of the late night movie and so on. Or I ate too much pizza and so on. So, no, if you want to go, you go, regardless of what. And like he said, body is not ours. And the fourth, which is the most difficult, and not even the learned people can overcome, and something to think about, is our own thoughts. Even if you are all sitting here, including myself, and you may think that Mahendra is listening to Dr. Swaminji, I may be visiting my home or thinking about car problem or something else. See, we are all, our mind is like a monkey, worse than a monkey, I mean, but drunk monkey. So can you imagine, monkey can be still, and what happens if it drinks alcohol? So that's why you have to control it, and you can only do by practice, and practice. So three ways you can control mind: practice, practice and practice. So that is how it is, slowly overcome the obstacles by study, education, giving more time, and a routine and regular and all that. Now what was your second question? Second part, I mean? I will let Puji Atmananji throw some light on it. બાળકોને મોટાઓ કરતા શું વિશેષ ફાયદો છે?
The days of our youth are the days of our glory. Any very good work can be done by the young people, not by the very aged ones. That is why Bhagavan Neminath, Bhagavan Parshvanath took to religious life when they were in their early 20s or late 20s. Religion has nothing to do from absolute point of view with the age. It is for an average person. Religion bestows peace and bliss which nobody else can bestow. So it has nothing to do directly with the age. Whosoever practices true religion will become happy, and to become happy is the goal of the young, the goal of the middle age, the goal of old age, and the goal of every creature in the universe. Every creature in the universe wants what? Happiness. And where is that happiness? That happiness is inside. And how to attain to that happiness? Through appropriate spiritual practices. Appropriate spiritual practices. So, serviceability, seva bhav, satsang, association with the noble and the holy ones, regular reading of the scriptures methodically, becoming more and more virtuous in life, devoting more and more time for prayers and meditation, and eventually that leads us to the highest spiritual experience of self-realization. So, age is not directly related with religion. Religion, when Gatsukumar attained to Keval Jnana, he was 10. When Sukoshal Muni attained to Keval Jnana, he was also 9 or 10. And when Neminath took to Girnar, he was 22. So, it is not necessary that age is directly related to spirituality. But people don't know the benefits of true spiritual life. That's why they think that when we will become old, we will do religion, but in old age, all things will be like old age. You know, old age means everything. So like your religion also means like that.
One of the advantage children have is they don't have to, they are so innocent, simple and pretty much clean slate that they can really learn and adapt. While us adults, we learn many times wrong, bad things because the tradition, not thinking, not exposed to certain things. We didn't have the benefit you do, believe me. I mean, I graduated from high school on a lantern. I don't have the electricity or things you take for granted. Anyway, this question, I thought a young man was writing an essay, but then when he handed me over at the end, to Praveen Bhai, we were surprised, but it's a very good question. I think one of the best one, if not the best. If I read it all, it will take a long time, but it basically says that Dr. Swaneji, if you say, he really meant us, that if you say that science is behind Jainism, and Jainism is way ahead of science, why do our parents send us to school where they teach science, and why don't they send us to the school where they teach Jainism? I think maybe you got a good idea, excellent idea. Actually, that is the ideal thing to do. Look what happened to M. Chandracharya. Like Pujya Sri said, what happened to Gatsukumar. But those are one in a million kind of thing. We live in a world where we have to survive. In other words, if we can go to that extreme, that's the best. In many examples in our scriptures, at a very young age, they give up the family and they do exactly what you are saying. So, they take the shelter of the religion. Dhammam sharanam gacchami or Chatari sharanam pavajyami. Kevali panatto dhammo sharanam pavajyami. So similarly, that is the best and the ideal thing to do. If we cannot do it, then what? Then what next? Well, then let's do the next best thing. And that go to the regular school where they teach the science. But keep Jainism in mind. In your thought, in our behavior, in our emotions, or our bhav, or our feelings. Because most of our karma really come from our feelings. Anyway, like our President Kanti Bhai said, we'll take what? 10 minutes break? 20 minutes break? There's a tea and fruits for appropriately. Jai Janendra.
Vedic support only from Sealy.
I'm not comfortable with this.
We know only, and based on that sermon, the Gandhar, the chief disciple of Tirthankar, will write the scriptures. So, we know what Tirthankar said or Mahavir Swami said only based on those scriptures. And that is why we worship them, because we know only them, we do not know anybody else. Now, ordinary Kevali, there have been millions, billions, or even in your young language, zillions. And so, we do not know any one of them. That's number one. Number two, by definition in our religion, when an ordinary soul becomes omniscient, they do not teach. In other words, they simply become omniscient, and when their current, present, last life is over, they attain the salvation, and that's the end of it. So, nobody knows their name, there is no need, they don't think about it, and there is nothing that they teach us or there are any reason for us to remember or worship them. Only Tirthankar shows us the path to salvation. They tell us what is good for us, what is in our best interest, how can we or do we achieve salvation, how can we live ordinary life, and fourfold order and so on, and the rules of the householder and rules of the monk and so on. So that is how we worship Tirthankar. Okay, is there any other question from our young friends? Otherwise we can take some, Pujyasri will take some questions from adults in Gujarati, of course. Any other question from children? I should come, Sital.
Well, my question is in the Jain. Okay, in Jain scriptures, we've always been taught to practice the belief of ahimsa, which is like also never hurting or trying to kill any living being. And what my question is if we never want to hurt or kill any living being, then why, when we give Bhagwan a bath and stuff, that we decorate them with flowers, which is killing the actual flower, which is a living being, and during puja we use so many flowers.
Swami Bhagavan ki. The question is, if all life is to be respected, why do we pluck the flowers and use them for puja? Well, in certain sects among the Jains, flowers are not used for puja. But most Jains use flower for puja. For understanding the logic of it, we will have to go into the depth of what is the flower. Flower comes from plant. The plant has only one sense, sparsh, touch. So while plucking the flower, we are giving minimum injury to a soul which has got only one sense. And therefore the cruelty that we have to use for it is also absolutely minimal. It is the amount of cruelty involved in a particular act which is responsible for the violence involved in it. Again, by taking one flower and putting it in the lotus feet of the Lord, if we get power, our devotion increases, then there is a larger gain and a smaller loss. That smaller loss is to be accepted if there is a large gain along with that. I hope I am clear. The totality goes in favor of profit. The gain of bhava, bhava vishuddhi, bhakti, devotion is more, and the slight sin which is due to plucking of the flower is less. So on the whole, there is no harm in putting a flower before the Lord. But if you can do the same without putting the flower, or by putting such other objects as rice, almond, and so forth, no flower is needed. The puja with flower is not compulsory. But most people do it because that is how their bhava comes, and they feel that, Lord, I have given this flower at your lotus feet. Make my soul also very polite, komal, soft, so that it increases its feelings for the well-being of all the worldly sentient beings. So that is in general the answer, but there is no absolute answer to it.
My question is that why do we do puja? If we're, our belief is that once like Tirthankar or whoever has attained moksha, they can't act on our behalf. They can't hear us. Why are we doing puja? Why do we devote so much time to ritual rather than just meditating on ourselves?
I think that this question has been previously asked for and partly answered. The question is, why should we worship the Tirthankara or the great masters? Instead, because they are not going to directly help us, because they are vitarag. Then what is the use of worshipping them, doing puja? The fact is, this is simple psychology. He who understands an object and meditates on it automatically imbibes the virtues of the object meditated upon. If you all the while think of devil, then actually your thoughts will always work in that direction. Like that, the great munis, they pray for the goodwill of the entire world or the universe. So they become non-violent. Means they become so much thrilled and filled with universal brotherhood that the animals around them also become quiet. So if we worship the virtuous ones, if we remember the virtuous ones, the virtues of the persons concerned whom we have worshipped will automatically be gradually imbibed by us. This is the law of psychology. જે જેનું ધ્યાન કરે તે તેના જેવો બને છે. સ્વામી ગુણ ઓળખી સ્વામીને જે ભજે દર્શન શુદ્ધતા દેહ પામે. Srimad Rajchandraji has answered this in the 14th lesson of Moksha Mala. He has given two examples. If we keep a sword, then we feel brave. Or if we take some intoxicating object, we are intoxicated by it. Gujarati is very clear. જેમ તલવાર હાથમાં લેવાથી શૂરવીરતા ચડે છે અને ભાંગ ખાવાથી નશો ચડે છે, તેમ પરમાત્માનું ધ્યાન કરવાથી, પરમાત્માના ગુણોનું ચિંતન થવાથી તેમના ગુણોનું આંશિક અવતરણ આપણા આત્મામાં થાય છે. And that is the goal of life. If we can imbibe the virtues of the Lord, then one day tadguna labdhaye. I worship the Lord not to please Him, but to be virtuous like Him gradually. Of course, it's a long process because He is like a Himalayas and we are like a small piece of stone. But still, by and by and by and by and by, one day we will reach the goal.
આજના સમયમાં જીવ કલ્યાણના નામે ઘણા ફંડફાળા લોકો કલેક્ટ કરે છે, પૈસા કલેક્ટ કરે છે. પણ તમે ઇન્ડિયામાં જાઓ કાં તો દુનિયામાં જાઓ, મોસ્ટ ઓફ ધ મની નેવર રીચીસ ધ પીપલ. જેના માટે પીપલ ઓર એનિમલ ઓર વોટ એવર તે કલેક્ટેડ ઇટ ફોર. તો ઘણા લોકો એમ માને છે કે પૈસા આપીને એમનું કર્તવ્ય પૂરું થયું. એ બરાબર છે કે નહીં? અને બીજું સવાલ એ છે કે પૈસા સિવાય હવે કયું દાન કરી શકાય જેનાથી તમે શ્રેષ્ઠ દાન કહી શકાય, જેનાથી તમે શ્રેષ્ઠતમ?
એમાં સુપાત્ર દાન આવે છે. આપણે જ્યારે દાન કરીએ ત્યારે એ દાન નો ઉપયોગ સારી રીતે થશે એવું કોઈ સંસ્થા, કોઈ વ્યક્તિ, કોઈ સંઘ, કોઈ પાંજરાપોળ એ હોય તો એનું થોડું સ્ક્રુટિની કરવી જોઈએ કે ભાઈ એનો વહીવટ સારો છે, એના ટ્રસ્ટી લોકો જે છે તે બધા ઓનેસ્ટ છે અને એમને કોઈ સેલ્ફિશ ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ નથી. આટલું નક્કી કર્યા પછી આપણે દાન આપીએ તો વાંધો નહીં. એટલા માટે એમાં વિવેકની જરૂર છે કે જે જગ્યાએ દાન આપીએ તે સંસ્થાના સંચાલકો એ જે પર્પઝ માટે દાન લે છે તે પર્પઝ માટે વાપરી અને લોકોનું કે પ્રાણીઓનું કે બીજા કોઈ પણ મનુષ્યોને કલ્યાણ થાય એવી પ્રવૃત્તિ કરે એવું આપણે એનું જરા આપણે કહો તો કસોટી કરવી જોઈએ, ચિકિત્સા કરવી જોઈએ અથવા એને આપણે સ્ક્રુટિનાઇઝ કરવું. બીજો પ્રશ્ન હતો કે ભાઈ પૈસા સિવાય બીજા શેનું દાન કરી શકાય? એ આપણે ગઈકાલે આવી ગયું. આહાર દાન સાધુ સંતોને આપણે આપી શકીએ. જ્ઞાનદાન દ્વારા આપણે પુસ્તકો કોઈ સાધુઓને, કોઈ સ્કોલર્સને, કોઈ સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને આપી શકીએ. એકલા all the instruments required for increasing the knowledge. Pen, pencil, notebook, compass, uniform, fee. એવી રીતે આપણે આપીએ તો એ પણ બીજા પ્રકારનું દાન છે. ત્રીજા પ્રકારનું અભયદાન. આપણે આપણે હાલતા ચાલતા કંઈ પણ કામ કરતા કોઈ પણ નાના જીવો ન મરે એ પ્રકારે જો ધ્યાન રાખીએ તો આપણો આત્મા વધારે એલર્ટ બને અને એવી આત્માની જાગૃતિ એ જ ધર્મ છે. अब जाग मुसाफिर भोर भई, अब रैन कहाँ जो सोवत है, जो सोवत है सो खोवत है, जो जागत है सो पावत है. તે ઉપરાંત સેવા. ગરીબોને આપણે મમરા આપી શકીએ, ગરીબોને ચણા આપી શકીએ, ઠંડી હોય ત્યારે ધાબળા આપી શકીએ, ગરમી હોય ત્યારે શેલ્ટર આપી શકીએ, વૃદ્ધ લોકો હોય તો તેમની આપણે ફિઝિકલી સેવા કરી શકીએ. એમ જેટલું થાય એ પ્રમાણે જુદા જુદા પ્રકારે આપણે ધન સિવાય પણ સેવા કરી શકીએ. તો આ જુદા જુદા બધા વિભાગ છે, જુદા જુદા પ્રકાર છે કે જે દ્વારા આપણે સીધા પૈસા નહીં આપતા પણ બીજા પ્રકારનું દાન દઈ અને સામા મનુષ્યોને શાતા ઉપજે, શાંતિ ઉપજે એવો આપણે પ્રયત્ન કરી શકીએ. વિનય અને વિવેકનો પણ તમારો પ્રશ્ન છે એટલે એમાં તમારે થોડું વાંચવું પડે. વિનય ઇઝ હ્યુમિલિટી. આપણે ભગવાનને પગે લાગ્યા, સદગુરુને પગે લાગ્યા તો આપણો માન જે છે, અભિમાન, એનો નાશ થાય અને આપણામાં વિનય ગુણ પ્રગટે એટલે આપણો આત્મા ઊંચે જાય. વિવેક જે છે એ જરા થોડો અઘરો છે. જડ અને ચેતન, આત્મા અને અનાત્મા, પણ એને માટે થોડો વધારે, પણ સામાન્ય હોય તો ભક્ષ્ય અભક્ષ્ય, સ્વધન પરધન, સ્વસ્ત્રી પરસ્ત્રી બધાનો વિવેક તો કરીએ જ છીએ. તો એ પ્રમાણે આપણે કરવું.
Hi, I have a question. I'm an engineering consultant and I go to my customer's place and then many times I have to buy lunch for them. And I'm a vegetarian, but I like to buy lunch. I'm very generous buying lunch for other people, but still they are eating meat. And I feel awful about it that I'm buying a lunch for the people and they're eating meat and I encourage them not to eat meat. But still I feel awful every time I go through that exercise. મારો ધંધો એન્જિનિયરિંગ કન્સલ્ટિંગનો છે અને હું જ્યારે મારા કસ્ટમર પાસે જઉં છું ત્યારે ઘણી વાર મારે એ લોકોનો લંચ બાય કરવાનો હોય છે, એટલે એઝ બિઝનેસ એક્સરસાઇઝ. અને જ્યારે હું લંચ બાય કરું છું ત્યારે હું પોતે વેજીટેરિયન છું, પરંતુ એ લોકો મીટ અને આલ્કોહોલ બધું લેતા હોય છે, પરંતુ હું પૈસા આપું છું. મને બહુ આનંદ થાય છે, પરંતુ એટ ધ સેમ ટાઈમ મને બહુ દુઃખ થાય છે કે મારી સામે આ પ્રમાણે એ લોકો મીટ ખાઈને આલ્કોહોલ પીવે છે અને હું એ લોકોને એન્કરેજ કરું છું આ બધું નહીં કરવાનું, પણ તો મને એ પ્રમાણે દુઃખ થાય છે. અને what should I do?
ગૃહસ્થને આજીવિકા પ્રાપ્ત કરવી એ ફરજિયાત છે. ગૃહસ્થ માગવા જઈ શકે નહીં. ધંધાની રૂએ કેટલાક પાપ કરવા પડે છે. એમાં જો એવો ધંધો શોધી શકાય કે જેમાં ઓછામાં ઓછા પાપ હોય તો સારું, પણ જો એવો ધંધો ન મળે ત્યાં સુધી આપણે આ પ્રકારે કરવું પડે અને એને માટે આપણે પ્રાયશ્ચિત કરવું પડે કે હે ભગવાન, મારે કોઈને નોન વેજીટેરિયન ડાયટ ખવડાવવું નથી, પરંતુ મારી આજીવિકાના ભાગ રૂપે મારે આવું કામ કરવું પડે છે, તો મને માફ કરો. અને જો બની શકે તો એ પ્રકારના કસ્ટમરો ઓછા લઈ શકાય, અથવા તો પોતાની નોકરી બદલી શકાય, અથવા તો પછી બીજો કોઈ ઉપાય નથી હાલ what cannot be cured must be endured and repented for. એટલી જ આપણી યોગ્યતા છે, એટલે એટલું પાપ આપણે કરીએ છીએ. પણ અંતરમાં ભાવ છે કે નથી કરવું, તો આપણો ધીમે ધીમે વિકાસ થશે અને એક દિવસ એવો આવશે કે જ્યારે આપણે એવું કંઈ પાપ નહીં કરવું પડે. બીજું કરવું, કરાવવું અને અનુભવવું એ ત્રણેયમાં પાપ છે, પણ કરવામાં વધારે છે, કરાવવામાં એથી ઓછું છે અને અનુભવવામાં એથી ઓછું છે. માટે એ તમે જે કરો છો તે સારું નથી, છતાં પણ અત્યારે તમારી પાસે બીજો કોઈ ઈલાજ નથી. કારણ કે તમને જો એવી જો નોકરી બીજી કોઈ મળે કે જેમાં તમારે આવું ન કરવું પડે તો તમારે શોધવાની, તો તમે એમાંથી બચી શકો.
ગોઈંગ અલોંગ સેમ લાઇન્સ, આપણે આજે બિઝનેસની વાત થતી હતી, એમાં તમારા ખ્યાલમાં કે એવો બીજો કોઈ એવો વ્યવસાય કે બિઝનેસ કે જે છે which is like absolutely acceptable along the Jainism guidelines, કે હું જેટલી વખત પણ હું બિઝનેસીસ જોઉં, બિઝનેસીસ કે પ્રોફેશન, જસ્ટ અબાઉટ એનીથિંગ આપણે જે જોઈએ ને એમાં કંઈક ને કંઈક તો એવી ચીજ આવવાની જ છે કે જે જૈનિઝમ એનાથી વિરુદ્ધમાં છે. I can keep on giving examples.
એનો સંપૂર્ણ ઈલાજ નથી અત્યારે, પરંતુ કંઈક જો પૂછવામાં આવે તો સ્થૂળપણે શિક્ષકનો વ્યવસાય પ્રમાણમાં અને કંઈક અંશે ડાક્ટર અને ઇન્સ્યોરન્સનો વ્યવસાય, આ બધા એવા છે કે જેમાં ઓછામાં ઓછું પાપ છે. બાકી બીજા બધાની અંદર થોડું થોડું પાપ તો છે, આમાં પણ થોડું પાપ તો છે. એટલે ભગવાને કહ્યું છે કે આરંભ અને પરિગ્રહ બે સાથે જ જાય છે. જેને બહુ કમાવાની ઈચ્છા છે એને પાપ ભાવ છે, એ ઈચ્છે કે ન ઈચ્છે. આરંભ તો બે પ્રકારના કીધા છે, અશુભ ને શુભ, પણ પરિગ્રહ બે પ્રકારના કીધા નથી. પરિગ્રહ તો પાપ માત્ર જ છે. જેટલો જીવ પરિગ્રહી છે એટલો વધારે પાપી છે. માટે એને તોડવા માટે મહાપુરુષો આગળથી પૈસો આવવા માંડે વધારે, એટલે એને યોગ્ય રીતે ખાલી કરવા માંડે. નહીં તો પોતે જ પોતાના પૈસામાં ડૂબી જાય છે. અને મહાવીર ભગવાને તો સ્પષ્ટ કર્યું છે કે ઘણો પરિગ્રહ અને ઘણો આરંભ તે નરક ગતિનો હેતુ છે. એવું સૂત્ર ભગવાને કહ્યું. માટે બહુ પરિગ્રહ પોતાની પાસે ન થઈ જાય એની કાળજી આગળથી જ લઈને મનુષ્યો, વિવેકી મનુષ્યો એને યોગ્ય રસ્તે એનો આઉટલેટ કરવા માંડે છે અને વિશેષ કમાવાની પ્રવૃત્તિને કંટ્રોલ કરી અને ધર્મના માર્ગે ચાલવા માંડે છે, સેવાના માર્ગે ચાલવા માંડે. મને હવે પછી તમે આપો.
ક્વેશ્ચન આવો છે, like killing is bad, why do we use leather? We shouldn't. Simple answer. We shouldn't use leather. જૈનો માટે ચામડાનો કોઈ પાકીટ, પટ્ટો, ચપ્પલ બધાનું શાસ્ત્રમાં મનાઈ કરી છે. પછી પૂજ્યશ્રીએ કીધું એમ આપણે આપણાથી જન્મ પણ જો લેટ ટોક ઇંગ્લિશ ફોર ધેમ. In our Jainism they say that not only we should not kill, but we should not ask anybody to kill, or we should not encourage anybody involving violence. And leather is an indirect violence. So we should never use any leather materials or leather articles. These two questions are from adults. Do we have any more questions from children? Okay, this one is from adult, but it is in English, so I think children will understand and appreciate. It says, this is a two-part question. Number one, if we believe that Jain religion is based on science or scientific facts, then what advance in regards to science Jainism has made? Jainism does not have to make any advance. Jainism is a perfect science in its own way. In its perfect knowledge, omniscient laws like Mahavir Swami and Tirthankar and Kevali Bhagwan, they saw the thing, they understood, they explained, or they told us, and that's the way it is. Jainism does not have to make any advance. They have not made any advance. Things have been exactly the same it was at Rishabhdev's time, or Shreyasnath Bhagwan, or Mahavir Swami. Another is, and if any, how that advance is have helped general public, meaning masses of India. If one really understands Jainism, Jainism has many things to offer. As Pujya Sri explained to children, world problems in Jainism, the Jainism is a core of, or I will say it in Gujarati and English, Ahimsa means non-violence, Aparigraha means non-possessiveness, Anekant means multiplicity of viewpoint, and Anukampa means compassion. If every Jain really follows and believes this, there will not be any problems or violence in the world. And second one is, of course, we will request him to answer, but let me read the question so at least we can all start thinking. Who decided the criteria? And I believe that the questioner is referring to Pujya Sri said in Dan Dharma, in Swadhyaya yesterday. He said a good Shravak should give a minimum 6%, a medium 10% and maximum 25%. Or putting it differently, a Shravak should give at least 6%, then it is at a very low level. A medium level Shravak should give 10% of his income, his or her, and a best Shravak should give his or her 25% of the income. Now the question is, who decided the criteria for a Shrestha Shravak with regard to the monetary donation, and how about people who physically help other people in need? Would they be considered Shrestha Shravak?
I think the second part is already answered. Suppose somebody has no money, but if he helps others in many ways, as I said, somebody asked just now, isn't it, that without donating money, how can we help others? So we can help the poor by actually doing field work, teaching them cleanliness, education, by giving them the basic needs of life, not money, but basic needs of life. And Abhaydan, that is, not to be always alert in all our acts of life so that we don't kill small or large animals during the process of our life. That second one is there. The first one regarding the criteria of, now this is for I had given the reference.
હું આત્મા છું, આપનો સેવક છું, સૌનો મિત્ર છું. હું આત્મા છું, આપનો સેવક છું, સૌનો મિત્ર છું. હું આત્મા છું, આપનો સેવક છું, સૌનો મિત્ર છું. જય સદગુરુ વંદન. જય જય સદગુરુ વંદન. જય જય સદગુરુ.